What's up, everybody? I'm Mr. Second Passport. As you may know, there was an election this week here in Ecuador, but what really made news are the events that happened just before the election. In the days leading up to the election and the months, there were actually five, as shown here in this article, five assassinations, successful assassinations, not attempts, literal assassinations of people running for mayors in the elections on yesterday, February 5th, 2023, here in Ecuador. And there was a sixth murder as well, but people aren't sure if it was a murder or not. It was a car accident. I don't know. So who knows, right? As well, just of a candidate just before the elections. Now, this is something that Ecuador has never really had too much of a problem with. It's happened, but not like to this level, right? So this is probably has to do with the narcos, the drug lords taking over of the country slowly but surely, and the powers that be. And it's not a good look, and it's not a good situation at all. Will Ecuador be the next Colombia, where I lived for a year in Medellin before it became really popular, like almost 10 years ago when I first started living abroad? I can tell you most of the women my age who were like I met that were born in the 80s and early 90s, they grew up fatherless and are currently fatherless because there was just so much violence in that Pablo Escobar era of mid to late 80s, early 90s era in Colombia. And so people think, oh, this is bad, about as bad as it can get. Actually, it can get a lot worse, is what I'm trying to get at. So I hope it doesn't go that far, but it might, right? It's getting there. There's starting to be some similarities of who exactly is taking power of the country. But what's really interesting about this, if we analyze, like this is one gentleman here who died, and maybe you can tell where that is if you know Ecuador like I do. That is definitely Puerto Lopez, little tiny, sleepy, touristy, whale watching Puerto Lopez. This guy was killed on the 4th, one day before the election, in Puerto Lopez. Right, nobody knows why or who did it yet, but we can all guess, right? But what's really interesting about these other assassinations were there was the guy who was going for mayor in Salinas, right? Tell me if you see something in common here. There was a guy who got assassinated in a small town near Guayaquil, right, in the Guayas province. There was the guy who was killed by a traffic accident, not sure if it was on purpose or not, in Santo Domingo, right? There was this lady, Alba Bermeo, who was killed this month as well, it says, in February. I didn't hear about that one, in Cuenca. Right, this would be the outlier. And another one that was killed on August 10th, another political candidate in Manta, right? So what do these 6 assassinations have in common? Well, all but one of them was on the coast of Ecuador, right? So why on the coast? Well, I'm guessing that's where the trade is all getting funneled out through. This is a sad occurrence in Ecuador that nobody else seems to be mentioning on YouTube, so I thought I'd take a second and mention it. Something to keep an eye on. Which direction will Ecuador go from here? We'll see. But super interesting and something to keep our eye on. I'm Mr. Second Passport. If you like this, subscribe, hit the like button below. Take care.